By the way, I'm going to show you what the current state of my git config .git config looks like. Okay, cd tilde. Here's .git config. Okay, so I'm going to do less .git config. All right, this is what I already went over. This, that, the other thing. Editor equals nano. And notice that there are like different sub configurations or subtitles here. I'm not sure what put these things in here. Color equals true. Push default equals matching. I think that was something I had to put in so I wouldn't get a certain error when I ran git. And okay, I guess these are some aliases. Okay, I guess that's the end. So that's pretty much my whole git config. Okay. Now on a project level, there is also a config file, and it would be in the repository projects folder in .git in a file called config. On a side note, people don't usually use a project level config file. It can, for example, be used to change your username and email, but why would you want to do that? Okay, moving on to the next point here, which is when you, okay, although technically it's possible to edit your user's global config file, there is actually a git config command which allows you to set values to certain attributes, shall we say. Okay, and this is an example of one, a git config command that does that. Again, I'm sure I can find more detail about this in more specific videos. By the way, the system option, here, let me back up. This thing, where it says some option, that's going to actually be one of these things. Okay, either nothing, global, or system. And basically that defines the scope. Most likely I'll use the global, and that way it applies to my users .git config file. Okay, so that's the proper way to edit your configuration file for Git using a command. And the most likely file that you want to edit is the global one, okay? I should also point out that when the manual for Git talks about the user, it is referring to the user, it is referring to the credentials that are in the config file for the user. It's not actually indicating or talking about the Unix user of the Mac or the user account that is being logged into on a remote server. By the way, it's useful to know that there are a few git config commands which are useful. You can use Git Config List to list the configurations instead of just looking inside the text file called .git config. You can also list individual parameters in the configuration by using git config and then the parameter reference.